Was pretty impressive drive one hand there, Rick. Centrifugal golf swing. Is that what you're talking about in that one-handed drill?
Absolutely. I really need to understand. When I started doing that, I didn't really know what I was trying to do. I'm taught 100,000 lessons, hanging out there 27 years trying to help people, and I just started hitting it one-handed, and all of a sudden I started hitting it very far one-handed. And I said, maybe I better find out how this works. So I went and bought some physics books. And I wanted to look up the word centrifutal force.
Okay.
Because I think I did 9 videos in the first 8. I'm throwing the word centrifugal force around. When I looked in this Energy Forces of Motion book, it wasn't in there. The word centripetal force was in there, and it said the force which makes an object turn in a circle. So I kind of delved into the meaning of centripetal force, and it said this: when an object rotates in a circle, force must be directed to the center of the circle to maintain the motion, otherwise the object will take off tangent to the path. This constraining force is called a centripetal force, meaning center seeking, meaning if I keep my hands fixed in the center, ball travels in a perfect orbit. If I move side to side, object takes off tangent to the path. Number one, the second benefit of this is control. As long as this rope is pulled taut, I can feel where the ball is and control the ball. And third, I can get great velocity. Actually, this is a unbalanced opposition. A balanced opposition would be no movement at all, but here I'm making a mini circle here. This travels faster in a wider arc, so I get great speed with no effort. If you go on the merry-go-round, you get on the horse on the outside, not the inside, it gives you a better ride. Same with the first wheel.
All right, so relate that to a golf swing.
That's right. So if I'm going like this here, if I'm going to move back and forth, I have 2 pivot points, right foot and left foot. So I'm going to turn my torso into the friction of my feet, maintaining a flex in my knee, and I want to maintain this centripetal opposition back and forth and not slide where I would have to use my arms to make up for it. So I want to load potential energy into each side to get this to whip. And I kind of went like this. And this club wants to fly out. I want to create a centrifugal tendency. I found the word centrifugal, but I didn't find the word force behind it. I found centrifugal tendency. The tendency of an object to fly out is very evident when I make it move in a circle. So I'm not going to let it, and I'm going to get great speed, control, and consistency. So here's when I hit it one-handed, I just kind of sit up here. I'm going to turn into the resistance of this thigh, building up friction and potential energy in my calf, thigh, gluteus, and a little bit of the obliques as I turn. And then I want to release it. And what Percy Boomer said was this, and I want to quote old Percy.
I got his book in my hand right here, actually.
Yeah, it's in the chapter centered on wrist action.
You've read this a few times, I can see.
Yeah, a few times.
Right.
As the club head arrives into the region of the ball, our body, because of its comparatively short degree of action, has gotten into its opposing position with the left heel back on the turf, left side straight and firm, right hip twisted in the left one, the whole giving a sense of secure brace to the whole body. By this time, the arms are halfway down, but the wrists are still pulled back. But now, owing to the forward pull of the hips and the gathering momentum of the club head, something must happen. What happens is this. We can no longer keep the club head from flying past the ball. We've done everything possible to delay the club head, to inhibit wrist movement, but finally the club head gets out of control and flashes through the ball as if mad with rage. And we must see to it that we do not interfere in any way with its ferocious passage through the ball. So here, as I hold this and make that move, I'm doing what Percy just said. So I'm getting a centrifugal pull. And Tim does that. Tim does it. He doesn't think about it.
Right.
But that's
I
what
do it
Tim
sometimes.
when
the ball goes straight.
All that was verbatim quotes out of Percy's book. But I guess, that's a lot of information, a lot of it that obviously people haven't heard before. In essence, the question that comes to mind as you're talking about all that, what is the center of the swing?
Percy said that it was 3 feet past the ball. He thought that the ultimate pulling force, the true center of the swing was over here, not at the ball. I don't want to hit at the ball. If I do that, I got to continue to accelerate. So I want to keep my left side moving out of the way to create the speed outside here. So that's why I like Tim. We were talking about light foot, right foot drill, right. Where as you move here into this and pick up the right foot, like Payne did and Freddie Couples does, where he just releases that and then goes into the left side, and it creates a great deal of velocity. It feels like it accelerates after the ball, not at the ball.
Tim, what
I'm still working on that part.
you've heard all this many, many times, and you understand it probably a great deal better than I from that one introduction to it. How long until it all clicked with you and made sense, all the things that Rick just talked about?
Well, like Rick said, I was doing some of the stuff, but when he actually explained it to me, how it related to the golf swing, I was able to kind of take it into parts and work on one part individually until I got the feeling of it. It's not like I'm thinking about all the stuff when I'm swinging.
Right.
I worked on certain pieces of it till I got the feel of it. Like I said, I'm a feel player. Once I had the feel of it, then I could just go ahead and do it. But once we went through that, it made sense.
And the club comes back, it's pulled out, it's pulled, you know, you have to be really good to aim at and get it on the center. This way you can just let it freewheel, Bobby Jones.
Bobby Jones, freewheeling through impact, yeah. Exactly.
And, you know, you do it as well as anybody, Tim.
Yeah, demonstrate what you mean by that.
Light foot, right foot.
Light foot, right foot. I mean, I'm just going to hit, this is a 5-iron here. I'll hit just a normal 5-iron, and I'll probably hit this, I'll hit this one about, maybe about 75%,
Okay.
and then we'll kind of look at that one as it has into a 100% shot.
So
It's
you just
about a 75% shot.
you flew that about $1.65.
Like 75.
$1.70.
I mean, yeah.
Oh, all right. You're getting
All
longer.
right, I'm getting a little stronger. Anyway.
All right, 100%. Are you flying almost 195?
Yeah, we'll hit this. Yeah, this might be like a 200-yard shot. But you can see, I mean,
Well, you can't see actually.
Can you
there's
see
very
those?
little. No, there's no difference.
No.
that's
It's
that's
just-
exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Outer velocity,
Right.
it's just effortless. You're not hitting at the ball, for sure. So many people ask my students, you know, are you aiming at the ball? And they go, sure. Well, you can't do that. You want to just swing through the ball and not try to steer it. I always say watching the ball fly is an entertaining distraction unless you have some kind of telekinetic ability to move it around. It's not going to help you much. So just turn, freewheel, and let it happen.
All right. We're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we'll be joined by Greg Town, and it's now time for our admin-staff. Get prepared to play better golf.
I'm here with Rob Bradshaw. Rob's a teaching professional for the Jim Dent Rick Bradshaw School of Golf, and we're going to demonstrate the pitch as you drive drill and how the right side, right hip, right leg, and right arm and hand act in the golf swing. And it's interesting, it's the same as throwing a ball where the club actually lags behind as you plant your left foot and then we release the ball when we're throwing. Same action. And it's the same action when we pitch the ball. I like to call this the hip chip body pitch or right side pitch, where I'm going to want to put my feet together, right elbow on the side of my body in close. I don't want it off. I want to keep it connected, knees slightly flexed, and a little hip turn in so I can feel my body kind of move in. I don't want an independent lifting with my arms. I don't want an independent stabbing with my arms and the club head at the ball. And I want to retain the angle. Notice I use the word retain the angle. I don't want to get tight and hold it, so I want to have a lightness and a sense of feel for the club head here, so that the club head lags behind when I'm pitching the ball, and it lags back and it'll rest against my index finger as it comes through, so the club will lift the ball, not me trying to scoop it. I want you to do this drill at home. It's a great drill. Do a little practice swing to get the feel and use your body to pitch the ball and retain the angle afterwards. Do it that size and it'll really zing in on you and you'll feel it in your body. You can take this drill to your mid-irons and even your driver. The pitching movement is the same as the driver, and Rob's going to demonstrate here with the one-hand long drive. He always hits it between 280 and 300 every time. It's exactly the feel you want to try. You really know how to make that right side work throughout the swing. It's a great demonstration. Try the body pitch at home and then try to do it with the full swing. It's really going to help you a lot.
All right, wonderful tip. Right now, it's a pleasure to bring onto the show via the magic of telephones. That would be Tim Petrovic's dad, Robert. Robert, how are you doing this evening?
Terrific, thank you.
Oh, thanks for calling in. Now, I imagine you're a pretty proud papa.
Big time,
Yeah.
to say the least.
And rightfully so. Your son is a great example of perseverance. I say, if nothing more, he's much more than that. But that's, I think, a wonderful synopsis of the career he has lived up until winning on the PGA Tour and finally getting to that pinnacle that he's practiced for so long. Has he always had that quality?
Absolutely. I think from the day, probably when he was around 12 or 13, his Babe Ruth baseball career came to an end, and he made the decision that he was going to venture into golf. And I think basically from that point, there wasn't any turning back for him, and truly all his efforts were in that direction.
Now I understand you were his original instructor, and then once you got him to a point where you felt he needed to progress past that in the hands of a professional, is when the two gentlemen joining me on stage, your son, of course, and Rick Bradshaw, got together through you as well.
Absolutely, and I recognize my limitations, if you will. I'm Dad. I've seen him swing for how many years at this point in time, and my expertise or advantage that I might have is simply in the fact that if something doesn't look right, I might suggest or say that to him, but in no way, under any pretense, can I recommend a fix, if you will, and that's where Rick and Greg have come in.
I'm sure, as you see in the background right now, we're rolling some videotape of you caddying for your son. I believe that was at the Hartford Tour stop. Now, you mentioned his Babe Ruth Little League career. How much, and I understand Tim was a heck of a pitcher, and matter of fact, recently at a charity auction, I watched him buy a baseball for a great deal of money. That's another story, nonetheless.
We're not going there.
How much did his pitching and his baseball help him in golf, in your opinion?
I think it was a significant aspect. He's a good athlete, very well coordinated, and as Rick explains, and his brother just demonstrated, that right-hand release and swing, you're simply at a different plane when you're throwing a baseball over the top versus chasing that right hand after the golf ball.
What are your thoughts on that, Rick?
Well, we've talked about this, Bob, and you know, it's virtual. I think the golf swing is a throwing motion. I know you've talked to me that when Tim was pitching, he always had that rhythmical type of lanky throwing motion. You have different types of pitchers, but he had that whip type throwing motion. I think a fast pitch underhand motion is where pretty good, where you just kind of use your left leg to kind of get the resistance to let the ball release. I think that's a good example, but it's the same kind of leg movement where you need to use your legs. The reason Nolan Ryan was around a long time, you know, used his legs, just didn't use his arms when he pitched.
Got anything to ask Dad there, Tim? You were smiling while you were
I'm looking at some swings here. A couple of them look good. Dad, thanks for calling in. I heard it's a little cold up there, but you're welcome to come down. First tee's always open.
Thank you.
Hey, now, Bob, before I let you go, I got to ask you, Tim and I have known each other, as I mentioned earlier, since 1988, playing the Australasian Tour, then the Australian Tour. Nonetheless, through the years, he has earned quite a reputation as being the most dominant stymies player in tour history, and he's got a whole lot of my money in his pocket. The question I have, was he always a great putter?
Absolutely, from day one. And I was thinking about a little bit earlier during the show that probably one of the most significant first experiences that he had, I took him to a public golf course, and I went out to play 9 holes, and I left him on the putting green. And he's literally spent a good solid 2 hours with a putter, and when I walked off of that 9th hole and they came over, he was still putting away.
Well, the real story is he played 18, and it was about 6 hours. So,
And how old were you?
well, this is 8, 9, 10, you know, this is through the baseball years. I mean, all I was doing was basically putting all day. So.
How much money had you won from the members at that point during the day?
Oh, no, by myself. I was out there just putting all day. Yeah, nobody would putt me.
Tim, you were always intrigued with putting. You always liked it. You know?
I guess I don't know, maybe I just had a knack, because I played with my hands. I had a knack for speed, and I just like seeing the ball go in. That was fun, seeing the ball go in when I was little, and I just kept hanging around the putting green.
I've seen it go in a great many times. Robert, first, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thanks for taking the time to call in.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks.